Drazan is a fourth-generation Oregonian from the Canby area, representing House District 39 in Clackamas County. She served as minority leader in the Oregon House from 2019 to November of last year, stepping down from her leadership position to focus on her bid for governor. Representative Christine Drazan, thank you for joining me on Eye on Northwest Politics.
Hi, Ken. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Well, a Republican hasn't been governor of this state since Vic Atiyeh back in the 1980s, 1987. What makes you think that this year could be different for a Republican?
You know, Oregonians know that we've experienced really tough times in the last decade. We've had a decade of Democrat control in the legislature, the governor's office. It hasn't resulted in the utopia that was promised. Instead, we have rising prices, we have high taxes, we have lawlessness in our streets. Too many of our citizens are sleeping out in the cold, and our schools are a mess. Oregonians know that it's time for change. The leadership that we have experienced in this last decade has not solved the problems, and we don't need more of the same. We need new leadership to be able to have a new vision for the future of our state. And I'm excited to be a part of that conversation, to be able to talk to Oregonians about their concerns and their vision and their hopes. And I look forward to the opportunity to lead our state out of this mess.
Both houses of the Oregon legislature are solidly controlled by Democrats, as are most statewide executive positions and Oregon's congressional delegation. So how can a Republican break through that politically?
You know, Oregon, in fact, isn't as blue as it feels to us. Kate Brown won her last race by 50.3%. Tobias Reed, when he ran the first time for Secretary of State, won his race in the 40% range. This isn't a mandate from Oregonians. And so the opportunity to bring Oregonians together and really focus on the problems and the challenges that are facing us is what elections are about. It's the marketplace of ideas. And we get out there and we talk about our ideas. And the Democrat ideas for how to address our state's future haven't solved any of these problems. And so this is a time to start to say what's best for our future, what's best for Oregonians, to focus on a future that's brighter, more hopeful, more prosperous, and of course, more safe. And Oregonians are experiencing this abandonment of community safety. They're experiencing this idea that affordability doesn't have to have any limits for what families have to be burdened with for the price of goods and services and housing and taxes. And that's not serving our future. And so Oregonians have a voice. They have a choice in this race, and it will be the people of Oregon who make a determination for what our future looks like.
Much has been made of the urban-rural divide in Oregon. Living in rural Clackamas County, how does that influence your priorities in this campaign?
You know, the urban-rural divide, from my perspective, is really about a need for opportunity across the entire state. And my commitment is to all Oregonians to support a vibrant and robust urban core and to not leave rural Oregon behind, to not allow for policies to move forward that in fact harm entire sections of our state based on a political agenda that doesn't serve people. And once you start to recognize that what people are looking for is the ability to control their own futures and to choose their own best future for themselves and their families, they will feel respected, they'll feel heard. And in fact, opportunity will rise across the entire state. That's how you solve the urban-rural divide. You don't turn Portland into LeGrand. You don't turn LeGrand into Portland. You respect and value all the different characteristics of our diverse and beautiful state, and respect the fact that Oregonians need to make their living and support their families differently in different parts of the state.
What will be your priorities during your campaign?
Education is top on my list. We have got to restore our standards for our kids and not abandon our kids any longer. We need to restore graduation rates, and we need to, in fact, have a better understanding of what COVID learning loss looked like and provide the supports that kids need to get back on track and be prepared to compete after they leave high school, to move on to continuing education, job training or college or a job, all of those things. They need to have a solid foundation to get there. And so education is top priority. We need to leave the politics at home and focus on the basics inside the classroom. And so outside of education, affordability is critical. And then of course, community safety. You know, when families don't feel comfortable letting their kids walk to school alone anymore, things have changed. When you see that folks are not necessarily comfortable with their employees walking out alone to go out to their cars at night, things have changed. And we need to equally apply the law, and we need to restore safety in communities across our state.
One of your high-profile opponents in this governor's race, now former State Senator Betsy Johnson, she has ditched both political parties and is running independently. What do you think about that, and how does it affect this race?
I look forward to the general election and having the opportunity to talk about our differences and how we would serve the future of the state. Right now, though, I'm in a Republican primary, and there are no independents running in the Republican primary. And so my election, my first hurdle is May 17th, and being the Republican nominee for the state of Oregon to run for governor of the state of Oregon.
You've been successful so far in fundraising, well over $500,000 so far. So what does that say to you about how competitive this race will be?
It says to me that people want to be able to have change in our state. They care about the future. When somebody donates to a campaign, it means that they believe in a vision of change, a vision of hope, and they stand with the person that's running. So somebody that runs for office, it's not about the title, it's not about the position, it's about serving people. And to be able to have the opportunity to serve all of Oregon is an incredible honor. And I recognize that it's an honor to do that. And I'm grateful and thankful and humbled, frankly, by the support I've received so far. And I think that means people really, really want change in our state right now.
You are critical of the recent redistricting process that created new legislative and congressional districts in Oregon. What are your objections to how the process was done, and what do you think about the result?
The result cemented Democrats' power in our state for another decade in the legislature. The process of gerrymandering Oregon's map started as far back as 2001. House Democrats walked out of the building at that time to ensure that the maps were drawn by a hyper-partisan Secretary of State. Since that time, our maps have had modest adjustments, and we've been living under these maps that are in fact gerrymandered for about 20 years now, and we will see that continue under the maps that the Democrats have adopted. There was a unique opportunity to come together and ensure that we had fair maps in the state of Oregon, but the stakes were too high for the Democrats to be able to hold on to their power, and they made the decision to break their word. And that can't continue. That doesn't serve Oregonians. And Oregonians, I'm hopeful, will hold the Speaker of the House accountable for that decision. She didn't have to cheat to get good maps. You can have fair maps that are bipartisan maps. And that, in fact, is what she chose not to do. She chose to double down on power and partisanship, and that harms Oregonians.
Doesn't that reflect the electorate, though, the maps that were drawn?
It's interesting when you look how the maps were drawn. There was a Democrat representative who gave a really good example of what this looks like. If you grab this neighborhood and then exclude this neighborhood, you in fact can pack these districts so that you get the outcome you desire for party registration, party affiliation. While you go through the process of balancing out population, at the same time, Democrats intentionally made a decision to cement their power and their control. And you only do that by carefully drawing the lines in a way that is more political than it has to be. And so they absolutely looked at neighborhoods, they looked at where members served, they looked at partisan breakdown, and all of that happened to have us land on these maps that we have that are entirely gerrymandered and don't serve the future of our state.
We've got about 30 seconds left. What final comment would you like to make concerning your campaign and this race for governor?
I am an Oregonian, but I'm a small town girl who has been privileged to be able to have the opportunity to serve Oregonians for every portion of my life. I've committed myself to serving others. I care deeply about the future of this state and Oregonians. And I want to do everything I can to get us back on course. I want to do everything I can to support the future of our state and to stand up for folks that right now are not feeling heard. I look forward to earning the vote of Republicans in the May 17th primary and then moving on to the general election. Thanks so much for having me today, Ken.
Representative Christine Drazan, thank you for being here on Eye on Northwest Politics.